Good morning. Good morning, everyone. If you don't know by now, today is World AIDS Day. This is actually the 35th anniversary of World AIDS Day. And the theme this year is so profound. The U.S. theme is remember and commit. So I came on to share for a moment a memory that I have of my work in HIV that really set the stage for me to focus not just on HIV itself, but the injustice of the disparities, particularly in Black communities, as well as the racism that exists that is impacting our ability to get to the end of the epidemic. So, a few years ago, let me stop lying. It was not a few years ago, many years ago. I was in my 20s and was doing um, community outreach work in HIV. And I started seeing a shift in the populations that were being impacted the most in Northwest Florida. And more often, I was giving back test results to people who looked like me. And I shared with the health department that we needed to convene a minority advisory board. I wasn't even gonna call it black. And we needed a minority advisory board to address what we're seeing in terms of new HIV diagnoses, the stigma around HIV testing, and that we're seeing higher rates of death from complications related to AIDS than other communities. Now, this is the 90s, not 2023. This is the 90s, and we're having these conversations. The director for the HIV program said we didn't need that. The system that was currently in place has worked fine for over 15 years. And I kept giving him the pushback. What you saw 15 years ago, you're not seeing here in 96, 97, 98. There are some changes that has to happen. We need to be hearing from the communities that are seeing higher rates of HIV. Nobody's talking to them. No one's creating commercials or brochures. Sound familiar? To address HIV in Black communities. And he kept giving me pushback, and he said, no, you're still new to this. You'll see that this is working. And I wouldn't back down. And so, for those of you who know me, who really know me, know that I'm an introvert. I don't like confrontation. And if you start yelling at me, I might back down. But something got released in me that day. And I refused to back down. So he slammed his briefcase on my desk and he said, fine, if that's what you want, this minority group, then I'll even pay for the chicken and the watermelon myself. And they're going to come and they're going to scratch themselves. I am quoting verbatim what he said. And you will still be left alone trying to convince folks that we need a minority advisory group. I think there is one person still alive that can attest to this traumatic conversation. Cindy, if you out there somewhere and you remember that day, chime in. I shared with the director that day, I do hope that you are looking for another job, because there's no way that you're going to talk to me about my community as if I don't even exist and I not take action. Well, a week later, every NAACP president for the 4 counties I represented showed up to the health department, and that person no longer served as the HIV/AIDS program coordinator. That's the action that was necessary to start shedding light on an epidemic that was going to impact Black communities far greater than anyone ever imagined. So now what do we do? How do we inform the masses of what is happening in the panhandle of Florida as it relates to HIV? Black people are coming in, they're finding out their HIV status, and in 6 months they are transitioning, which means that these are late diagnoses. We're not getting people in to test early. And those who are coming in and they test, they don't understand the HIV healthcare process. They may lack health literacy, so they don't know how to navigate services. We need some help. And now I'm this 20 something, and people are looking to me to have the answer. And I don't. But I do know what we can do. We can take a page out of the civil rights playbook. And that's how we're going to raise attention to what is happening to us in Florida. So I met with the team and I said, we're going to march. Some said, oh, that's great. We're going to march in downtown Pensacola. We'll work on the permits. No, not downtown Pensacola. Oh, okay. Are you thinking of something radical like we're going to block off the interstate? That didn't just start with the Black Lives Matter movement. We were looking at radical ways to address HIV in Black communities 30 years ago. And I said, no, something that is far greater than blocking off the interstate. What in the world, Leisha McKinley, wasn't married at that time. Shout out to Purvis. What are you thinking about us doing? We're going to march to the Capitol. The capital of what? Florida? You got to be kidding. We're going to walk 200 miles to Tallahassee to talk about HIV? Yes. Wait, how are we going to get people to get involved? Is it just going to be the 4 or 5 of us walking? No. We're going to get communities to walk all over Northwest Florida. They're going to join us when we enter into their counties, because we're going to raise awareness and they're going to see too how HIV is impacting us. We may not all agree about the delivery of our message, but we all can agree that nobody deserves to have to be diagnosed and face the conditions that are presented to them in this region. So we did. We organized a march from Pensacola to Tallahassee. And I want to give a shout out to one of the walkers, somebody who was close to me. Matter of fact, she was my age now when she chose to walk 200 miles. And that's my mom, Cindy Howard. So if you are watching, thank you for your advocacy and thank you for being such an amazing example. So here we go. We're going to organize a march. And what would really be Florida's buckle of the Bible Belt? And we're going to get Black communities to support us about an issue related to sex. The same people that speak of hellfire and brimstone, the same people that are shunning folks who are same gender loving, those are the people that you want to mobilize to march with us? Absolutely. Because, see, there's one thing that I get to bring to the table that I already know is going to be effective. And that is, I speak Black church. I have grown up in the church, raised in the church. I know the language of the church. And what is the message? We gonna save ourselves. 96, 97, we gonna save ourselves. And so that's what we did. And we took out walking. And in every county, we had Black churches who fed us. I think they all had the same menu. Green beans. I didn't eat green beans for a year after this walk. I was sick of green beans. Uh, there was always a pound cake during the march. Shout out to all the missionary societies who made pound cake along the way. And even though I'm not Divine Nine, I can't ignore the overwhelming support that we had from the members of Delta Sigma Theta. Every county that we marched in, the women of that sorority, they met us, they donated, they prayed, they helped finance the rooms for sleeping quarters for folks. Many of the people who marched with us were people who were over the age of 50. People like the late, great Miss Georgia Blackman, who organized all the media. I'll never forget her contribution to our work in HIV. As we got closer to the finish line, to Tallahassee, you can't enter the Capitol coming from the Panhandle without entering into Florida's only predominantly Black county, which is Gadsden County. And one of the great leaders, Sandra Anderson, helped organize people who came out and they marched with us to the Capitol. That day, Florida got a chance to see our commitment to save ourselves. And that would later become the first funding for the first Black-led HIV organization, United Counties Minority AIDS Care, also known as UMAC. So as I take this time today and reflect on what World AIDS Day means to me, it means that we don't leave anybody behind. It means that we address the root causes of why we are still dealing with HIV and disproportionate impacts in Black communities, and those root causes. Institutional racism, not addressing racism as a public health crisis, lack of access, and lack of commitment to Black communities. Do not let the day go by and not do something to raise awareness about HIV in our community. Share this video. Attend a local candlelight vigil. The news outlets are covering stories all day. Share that information with colleagues. Find a place to learn your own HIV status so we can lead by example. Remember and commit. I just want to thank everybody who has ever served with me, who has poured into me, who is doing this work, who may never have been recognized for your contribution to ending new HIV diagnosis, for your contribution for laying at the bedsides of people who were transitioning, for your contribution for staying on the job after 5 p.m. because someone has come in and they need service, for your contribution. Knowing that people may talk about why you're so committed to an issue like HIV, and those narratives about you may not be true. I just want to say thank you. Even if I don't know you personally, know that your service has not been in vain. Until the epidemic is over, yours in the service.